Our invocation will be provided by Shirley Murdoch, member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Please stand for the invocation and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Our dear Father in heaven, we are gathered together this evening in the attitude of a city council meeting to ponder and reflect and identify the issues and concerns and challenges that there are in conducting the affairs of the City of Independence. We are grateful for our mayor and each member of the City Council and ask Thee to bless them with guidance and discernment as they make the decisions that will ensure the best outcome for all of the citizens of Independence. We are grateful for our police department and all of the first responders and ask Thee to bless them and protect them. We ask these blessings, giving Thee our love and devotion and gratitude in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation.
Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Spears.
Here.
Perkins.
Here.
Stewart.
Here.
Steinmeier.
Here.
Hobart.
Here.
Mayor Rowland.
Thank you very much. Here. Okay, and next we have citizens' request, and I believe Wes Epperson was the first to get on the agenda. Mr. Epperson, are you here?
Yes.
How are you, sir? So please come forward, state your name and your address and your reason to speak, please.
Yes. My name is Wes Epperson. I'm here to speak about the case on the 40 Highway car lot. And I'm sorry about my voice, but I'm going to do the best that I can. So, Mayor and City Council, my name is Wes Epperson. We began a group of neighbors back in May of this year in the southwest part of Independence. It's called the Southwest Independence Improvements Committee. And we informed this committee because many of our residents are concerned about the blight in our area of town. And that's why I came to speak on this case number 22-200-08 that's going to come up later. Our concern is about the situation on 40 Highway. We already have 7 used car lots on 40 Highway from Blue Ridge Cutoff up to Sterling Avenue. We really don't feel like we need an 8th. We are encouraged by some of the improvements that are about to take place on 40 Highway. The City of Independence has partnered with the state of Missouri, and Complete Streets program is going to take place on 40 Highway, which will bring about much needed improvement and updating. We also are going to get a new bridge at Blue Ridge Boulevard over I-70. The state of Missouri will probably spend $5 to $6 million on that bridge. So we do have some good things going on 40 Highway. We're looking for new business, new commercial business in that area, but we feel like we're already inundated with used car lots. And I do want to finish up by I had an email on the way to this meeting, and I want to read it to you. This is one of our concerned neighbors in the southwest part of Independence. And by the way, we have 100 people in our committee that's just been going for 5 months. She writes, "We're not able to make it, but we are in opposition of another used car lot. We did notice the public hearing sign is posted on the back side of the business. We do not see a visible sign in the front of the business that faces 40 Highway. Someone needs to take pictures and let them be presented at the hearing of the trash, the weeds, and junk vehicles on the property. They constantly are revving up motors and slamming hoods of cars up until 10 o'clock some nights. This business has shared a fence line with the residential. Hope this helps. I hope it helps for us to come to you tonight and ask your help in saying no, along with the city staff. The city staff does not recommend approval of the rezoning of this property. So I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Epperson. All right, next on the agenda is Mike Huff. Please state your name, reason for being here, and your address, please.
Good evening. Mike Huff, 16501 East George Franklin Drive, Independence, Missouri. I was looking through the agenda and noticed down here on a future meeting about changing the order of procedure here at the meeting. And I was great concern on the moving the citizens' request to speak to the end of the agenda. Back in around 2018, Councilman DeLucci and myself, did a resolution to change that because people were not allowed to speak after you already voted. At the end, you voted for the first, the reports and recommendations of the city manager. And so by the time, at the end of the meeting, you've already voted. So people had an opinion, they were suppressed. And I feel like we, the people, have a right to speak to our elected officials in a public setting. And so I definitely oppose this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Huff. Next on the agenda is Mike Freeland. You're going to have 3 minutes, and because you're, I believe, talking again. Excuse me, I need to make a motion to change the rules in order to allow people that are outside the City of Independence the opportunity to chat. So, Mr. Freeland, please forgive me. You can stay right there, but we've got to take just a second for a piece of business. We'll all vote yes, and then we'll move on. But it's just a procedural thing we have to do. So I want to apologize. I should have taken care of this earlier. So, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll to need a motion first. So would someone make a motion for that, please?
So moved.
I'll make the motion.
All right, we've
Second.
got two motions. Mr. Stewart, we've got a second. So we've got a motion and a second to change the rules. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Fierce.
Yes.
Perkins.
Yes.
Stewart.
Yes.
Steinmeier.
Yes.
Hobart. Can't hear you.
Yes.
Mayor Rowland.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Freeland, please forgive my interruption there, but now we're set for everybody else that wants to come up and chat. Mr. Freeland, you have 3 minutes to talk because you've talked before, I believe, on this topic, if I'm correct.
Correct. Thank
All
you.
right. Mr. Freeland, please give me your address and reason to talk, and then you may proceed.
Mike Freeland, 1226 East 25th Street South. I know I talked last meeting, so I'm not going to, I've already emailed photos and sent copies of the city letters from 1998 from the stormwater study. Basically, just pleading for your help once again to help us fix our water problem. We get flooded in our neighborhood and in our street and next to our home. And so my real concern is about the development plans for the rezoning tonight for the villas at Windmill Farms. In the city plans, it says it's going to tie into the existing sewer and drainage. It does call for a retention pond, but they are going to tie into the existing problem that's been at my residence for at least 27 years. So it is part of the capital improvements program slated to possibly happen by 2017. But when I talked to city staff, I met with Rick Aurora, and he said this project could pass, it could fail, but it also could pass with conditions. So I don't exactly know the conditions I'm asking for. If it's saying, hey, can we stop this project and do this project first, or please get our problem fixed before you add or tie into the existing problem, because it's not getting fixed. The city's aware of it, you guys are aware of it, so just hopefully the retention pond will help, but just out of words to know, just please help us. If this does pass, please pass with conditions. And it does look like they're already doing work up there. I know that they've got the McBee Car Wash and 2 properties for sale. But if it is already getting done, and obviously we're kind of in a drought right now, but I just trying to make my voice heard that please don't blow this off any longer, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Freeland. Next up is Ken Tompkins. You have 3 minutes.
If I change a paragraph, can I get 5? My name is Ken Tompkins. I live at 1227 East 25th Street South, Independence, Missouri. I thank the council and the mayor for allowing me to talk tonight. We do have water issues in our neighborhood. The city has been telling the residents in the neighborhood at 25th and Woodbury for over a quarter century that there's an issue with the storm drains that we are aware of. This is not a question of if there are. It is a statement that there are water issues, and it's bad. My house floods, my basement floods, my garage floods, my backyard floods. It's been so deep, it's been up over my ankle to walk through when the water's running through it. Now this comes at a cost. Now this new development wants to take away the grass, dirt, farmland, and trees in favor of concrete parking lots, trees, roofs, and gutters. A holding area for the new development is critical, but it's also a failure currently with no development, and these proposed changes have to be taken into account for failed drainage and pipes already, and I know this is going to exacerbate all issues in our neighborhood that I've witnessed as a resident for the last 36 years. I work here in Independence. I'm a member of the Independence Kiwanis. I work for a nonprofit agency. Every one of these help Independence, and now we're asking for Independence to help us. But our main concern, besides the water, which is really bad, is the traffic. Yes, the water issues affect our homes, but the fatalities on 23rd Street are a matter of life and death. 23rd Street from Nolan to 291 is rated in the top 10 in the state for severe and fatality accidents. I worry every time my wife goes a turn on 23rd Street that she will be safe. 23rd has had the most fatalities and accidents of anywhere in the Independence. A motorcyclist was just killed on 23rd and Pearl 15 days ago, which has been longer now. Another fatality occurred at 23rd and Kings Highway, Christmas 2020. These 2 commercial properties that McGee's are selling, or they're building next to the selling next to the McGee Car Wash, have already been turned down by the city for the most use, including food, fast food, and anything with traffic volume.
You have 1 minute.
23rd is too overloaded by the city's account. The traffic study shows 1,000+ cars will be added. I know this is hard, and I know it's hard for the city council to understand. But if this isn't a good spot, then why should it be approved? The planning commission turned down, or the city council recently failed a senior citizen housing proposal on Lee Summit Road across from Glendale. That would have been a much better spot for senior housing than this proposed. Why did this not get passed? If that project was turned down, I don't see how you can approve this one. Is this fair? The strategic plan for Independence in 2022 to 2026 states right at the #1 spot to have quality neighbors and neighborhoods. Do we? Let's make this fair. Help us make this fair. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is it Casey Paulo? Casey Paulo? And please state your name and reason for speaking, and also your address.
Hi, can you hear me all right? Yeah, okay. My name is Cassie Paulo. I live at 2410 Lee Summit Road. I'm speaking to oppose the proposed rezoning, which I believe is ordinance 22-084, development at Hayden. It's the same one that the previous speaker spoke about. I know that opposition to new development is very common, but I think in this case the residents speaking have an extremely valid case in their opposition, which is there is a lot of concern about stormwater drainage and tremendous concern about traffic as well. So I don't think that that we've really heard sufficient explanations for like how to solve these problems. So yeah, I'm still in opposition to that development. Not necessarily in opposition to any development at that location, but I don't think that this one is a good fit. And I don't think the concerns have been addressed. So I would urge you to vote to not approve this ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Paulo. Steve McBee, please state your name, your address, and reason for speaking.
Steve McBee, 19007 North 18th Street. Well, I think there's a lot of confusion here. So I want to give the facts. I want not emotion, but based on merit. So I think that it is very easy to understand when you look at the data. So some of the stuff that's been talked about on our property that we're trying to develop was saying that there's no doubt, you've seen the pictures, these folks have water problems. They've had water problems since '97 when they wrote the city a letter. With our engineering and what we're going to do from our property, talking about our 11 acres, we're going to improve their water problems off of any water that on our by 300%. The CSF, the cubic feet per second, we're going to mitigate that by 300%. So somehow I'm confused when they keep talking about we're gonna help, it's going to affect them negatively. They're arguing against an improvement that's going to help them. So I just want, and I'm going to tell you something about engineers, and you guys probably know this. They're bright people, articulate, and they do the math. It's based on data. So there's no emotion. They take it out. They run the numbers. They look at it, and this is what it's going to decrease. So if we put in an 1.5 acre or 2 acre detention basin, it's going to increase. It's going to improve the water performance off of our property by 300%. The water that they're talking about running down on them. So it's a benefit for them to have this with the water. They talk about, this all concrete deal. Our project is 48.5% green space. I mean, that's half. We lowered the numbers. That's a fact. That's not an emotion. It's 48.5% green space. We have a park. We have a dog park for our people. They talk about traffic. Is 23rd Street busy? Yes. If it wasn't, I wouldn't build there. I mean, like our car wash and everything, we run the data on the number of close. So you had a traffic study and it was during COVID, so it's not accurate. They're correct. We had one during COVID. Then we hired a different company in June of this year to do another. So you have a second independent third-party traffic engineer, which does data, not based on emotion. And they said at the peak, it's going to increase 4%. That's minimal. We had 3 new entrances onto 23rd. So during the peak hours, it's increasing 4%. If everybody in our 55 and older community left between 7 and 8 and got home between 4:30 and 6, 4%. So then when the numbers on the units changed, we did a third traffic study just in August this year, 2022, one in June of 2020. So they were like, did they update? Yes, we did update them. So I just want to let you guys know as you evaluate this, and look at everything that we're doing, base it on the facts, not on emotion. We're looking at the parking. They were saying, well, how much parking do you have? So we have 216 parking spaces, which for the 108 units, that's 2 per, and an additional 42 spaces for anybody visiting. So you have 2 per unit plus an additional 42. So there's more than adequate parking as well. As far as aesthetics, everything is on slab. It's a single level. They said, it's going to look ugly. No, it's going to be beautiful. I mean, the engineering, the stonework, everything, we didn't go in here and say, hey, can we build a 10-story high-rise and they're going to look out their window? No, as a matter of fact, it has trees buffering the whole thing. Nothing good comes out of a vacant property, whether it's a property or vacant land. I mean, when we come in there, you could check the police reports. We call every day. We literally have homeless in there every day. There was camps in there. Drug paraphernalia. Everybody knows it. So nothing good. Somebody had a suggestion, city should make a park. We'll make a park then. Buy the land back from me. But somebody needs to maintain it. This is the best project for that. So all I'm asking on our behalf is look at the facts when you make a decision. Don't base it on emotion. Base it on merit, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McBee. Mr. Paulo, you have 3 minutes. Mr. Jim Paulo. Mr. Paulo. Please state your name, your address, and reason for speaking, please.
I'm Jim Paulo, live at 2416 Lee Summit Road in Independence. I'm going to speak about the same rezoning issue. It's going to be real short. I hope you deny this request. I've received quite a civics lesson over the last 4 weeks with this matter, and I've gained a lot of respect for what you all go through, how much you have to listen to, and I just wanted to thank you for listening to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Paulo. Next up, we have Mr. Butch Nesbitt. Is that correct? Mr. Butch Nesbitt, please state your address and reason for speaking, please.
Butch Nesbitt, 3817 South Milton Drive. Okay, capital improvement projects. We got project number 112302, Nolan Road in Ling Court, slated for this year. It got approved through planning. Nobody wanted to talk about it, so I tried to talk about it. So what I recommend is that you, on the council, make recommendations that we postpone that one and go ahead and do capital improvement project 132701 Woodbury and 25th Street. That project 25 years ago was $25,000. Now it's $500,000. Our capital improvement project for Lynn Court is $700,000, $750, I think. So my recommendation is that the city would go back and relook at this and take that capital improvement project and move it off indefinitely till we need it. Really, what's not needed, that project, that Lynn Court's been there for what, 50 years or better? We used to have Kmart, Venture, lots of traffic. I don't know where this project came up. I don't know if anybody did this on the council this year or years ago. I don't know when it came up. So I would recommend that we take that and do the Lynn Court project, which would help the stormwater runoff, which has been there for 25 years that we've been postponing. Lots of city councils have been postponing. I don't know if it's the city manager's been doing that or what. So we need to get that straightened out. So that's where I think we probably would help on this project if that would be taken care of. So basically that's the two things I'm talking about there on capital improvement projects, but other capital improvement projects have to do with bicycles. I see no study on bicycle in Independence. We probably need a study. Well, I really don't want a study done, honestly. I drive around, I see bicycles, maybe one, maybe two a day, maybe throughout the city. And we're wanting to add bicycle lanes on Nolan Road and also up on the square. Them capital improvement projects need to be re-looked at before we go through with them. I know they're already been approved. We got millions of dollars approved to do this. I know it's through grant money, but I think if we take that grant money and spend it elsewhere on capital improvement projects for other roads that need sidewalks, major thoroughfares like 35th, 39th, we got a lot of major thoroughfares that don't have sidewalks for people to walk on, let loose, ride a bicycle to get to these buses. So they brought that up about having bus stops. Well, we got to have sidewalks for people to walk on. So I think the capital improvements projects need to be looked at. On the planning commission, they just want to rubber stamp it. I don't like that. I don't hope you guys don't want to just rubber stamp capital improvement projects. This is wrong. We should at least look at them. I don't know where they come from. I think they come from the staff. Basically, the staff we need to look at them and look at them closer. I mean, there's several of them out there. I just touched on two of them. I had like 30 pages of capital improvement projects. I wanted to talk about them on planning commission. No. I brought a motion. Nobody seconded. I just don't understand why we cannot look at these capital improvement projects a little closer and make sure the city actually needs them done. That's all I have to talk about. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nesbitt. That's everybody, isn't it? Okay. Next, we have a presentation for the Susan P. Block Award, which is presented by Cindy Pritchard, past president of the Junior Service League and chair of the Susan B. Block Distinguished Public Service Award Committee. So, Ms. Pritchard, please come forward and please present your award.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Cindy Pritchard, and I'm the past president of the Independence Junior Service League. I'm here tonight to present the 2022 Susan Paxton Block Distinguished Public Service Award. Junior Service League honors Susie Paxton Block by granting this Distinguished Public Service Award to public service employees, volunteers, and elected officials who demonstrate excellence in service. Susie Paxton Block was a second-generation member of JSL, including a term as president, and she also represented the 3rd District on the City Council from 1992 until her death in 1996. Her father, the late Bill Paxton, established this award in 1997 to honor her memory and recognize individuals from city employees to volunteers. The Distinguished Award is given to an individual who has demonstrated outstanding public service, valor, and job performance with leadership. We choose someone who has served over and above what normally is expected of a job. A selection committee composed of several Independent Service Club presidents reviewed all of our nominees, and then we chose our recipient for this year. Our chosen winner was the lead volunteer for the ESF6 support function during the COVID-19 response. She utilized her skills as a former disaster responder at FEMA to help coordinate Independence's mass care response to COVID-19. She helped lead mass feeding, social services, and mental health and well-being. Because of her, Independence was lauded for having one of the strongest regional responses to the pandemic. During the early days of the pandemic, she was coordinating the collective responses from dozens of social service partners and school districts to make sure people were properly fed and could meet basic needs. She was also key in connecting hard-to-vaccinate populations to a COVID vaccine. In addition to this role, she has served as the Vice Chair of the Human Relations Commission and has worked to help Independence embrace our community's diversity and create an inclusive environment. Our recipient is a wonderful example of how volunteering in this community has positively shaped Independence. This year's winner of the Susan Paxton Block Distinguished Public Service Award is Meredith Rose. Up here.
I didn't see her. I went to the function, unless she just left. I'm sure. Next, we have a proclamation for Constitution Week. Madam City Clerk, please read the proclamation.
Whereas we, the people, did ordain and establish a Constitution for the United States of America to secure the blessing of liberty for ourselves and our posterity. And whereas it is important that all citizens fully understand the provisions, principles, and meaning of the Constitution so they can support it, preserve it, and defend it against encroachment. And whereas Constitution Week provides an opportunity for all Americans to learn about and to reflect upon the rights and privileges of citizenship and its responsibilities. Whereas September 17th, 2022 marks the 235th anniversary of the signing of the Constitution of the United States by our nation's founders. And whereas the Independent City Council commends the Harry S. Truman chapter of the Sons of the American Revolution for lending leadership to promoting this historic and patriotic observance and preserving our cherished American heritage. Now therefore, Rory R. Rowland, Mayor of the City of Independence, hereby proclaims September 17th, 2022 as Citizenship Day and the week of September 17th through 23rd, 2022 as Constitution Week in the City of Independence, and encourages all leaders of civic, social, and educational organizations and programs celebrate our Constitution and reaffirm our rights and obligations as citizens of our great nation.
He was just telling me that it was safe that he was carrying weapons. That's what he was telling me. Here you go. We can get you one.
We got one for each of you.
There we go.
For the
I'd like to add, Darren, and thank you all. Bob and I'm with the Independence Patriots chapter, the Sons of the American Revolution. Bob is with the Harry S. Truman chapter. And I wanted to leave you all with one thought concerning Constitution Week. That our General Washington insisted, because we were, after all, a protest movement, that his men not salute him. He did not want to be saluted. But what he did insist was when his men, when the officers would pass by, or ladies, or other dignitaries, what he did insist, and this is part of the reason the hat is supposed to be on crooked, von Steuben, when he taught the militia how to fight at Valley Forge, taught the men to wear their hat over the left brow. One is, when you would pass, instead of saluting, you would doff your hat politely. Not down like the British. No. But to doff your hat politely. The other reason is, when you're shooting a firearm, if your hat is on straight, you knock it off. If the hat's on crooked, it doesn't get knocked off. So, with that bearing in mind, thank you.
Well done. Good job. All right, this brings us to the consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I've moved to approve the reports and recommendations of the city manager.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Anyone, do you want to pull anything out?
Mayor,
Please.
if we could pull 22805 and 22806, please.
22805 and 22806.
Yes.
And 22806. And those are both public hearing, so, okay, and they're resolutions. So, okay, very good. Anything else from other council members? We'll pull those two out. Hearing nothing else, we'll pull those two out, and please take the motion to approve the rest.
Councilmember Spheres?
Yes.
Perkins?
Yes.
Stewart?
Yes.
Steinmeier?
Yes.
Hobart?
Yes.
Mayor Rowland?
Yes. That'll take us to okay. Okay. Councilmember Steinmeier, please proceed on 22805, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Just just a question on the overtime policies that, how will these be approached with anything with collective bargaining agreements that we have right now, the current contracts? Does this change anything, or is this for future negotiations?
So this covers non-represented employees.
Okay.
There's about 155 employees in that category that would be impacted. Any future changes to work agreements, those would have to be bargained.
Okay.
So.
Okay, so it doesn't affect any of our contracts we currently have. This is just strictly to non-represented employees, correct?
Correct.
Okay, just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
Any further discussion on 22805?
I move to approve 22-805.
Do I have a second? Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Madam City Clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Spheres?
Yes.
Perkins?
Yes.
Stewart?
Yes.
Steinmeier?
Yes.
Hobart?
Yes.
Mayor Rowland?
Yes. City Councilmember Steinmeier, please proceed with 22806, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to know, what is the cost difference in the payroll to go from an E3 to an E2 executive status?
So which are you referencing there?
Well, we have, we're reclassifying Director of Public Health, Executive 3, to Director of Health and Animal Services, Executive 2, correct?
Yeah, so there's no cost change there. It's just bringing all department directors to the same level. So that change in particular, there's no change.
Are there any in here where there's a change in payroll?
Yes, well, the reclassifying certain positions in here, for instance, the positions that are moving, the new positions we are creating, the director positions, there is a change in compensation resulting from those.
Do we know how much those total?
Well, I think we provided an estimate before about that to the city council. I think all the changes that were recommended, it's a net savings of just a little less than $20,000 annually to the general fund.
So it's a net savings? Okay.
Correct.
So those were estimates, but now we've got the final numbers.
It's 18,000 something.
Okay. Okay, just want to make sure. Move to approve 22-806.
Have a second?
Second.
We've got a motion and a second for 22806. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Spheres?
Yes.
Perkins?
Yes.
Stewart?
Yes.
Steinmeier?
Yes.
Hobart?
Yes.
Mayor Rowland?
Yes. Okay, this brings us to the first public hearing.
A public hearing for the application by Ashley Smith requesting a rezoning from R12 two-family residential to C2 general commercial for the property located at 1711 East 23rd Street. New information only.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. My name is Rick Arroyo, the Assistant Community Development Director here at the city. This rezoning was considered by Planning Commission on August 9th of this year. Planning Commission did vote in favor of this rezoning. This is to use a property that's east of the new tunnel car wash that's being built on 23rd Street, which is west of the Discount Tire, for the purpose of an additional parking lot for that car wash site. And I have no new information to add for this one.
Any information only, that'll close the public hearing. And go ahead.
Bill number 22-082, an ordinance approving a rezoning from District R12 two-family residential to District C2 general commercial for the property at 1711 East 23rd Street South, 1507 East 23rd Street South in Independence, Missouri. Second and final reading.
Any discussion? Hearing none, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Spheres?
Yes.
Perkins?
Yes.
Stewart?
Yes.
Steinmeier?
Yes.
Hobart?
Yes.
Mayor Rowland?
Yes. And this brings us to another public hearing, so I'll go ahead and open that public hearing.
A public hearing for the application by Tim Pierman requesting a rezoning from R12 two-family residential to R18 PUD moderate density residential planned unit development and approve a preliminary development plan for the property located at 8718, 8718.5, 8720, and 8720.5 US 24 Highway. New information only.
Thank you again. This rezoning was considered by Planning Commission on August 9th of this year as well. Planning Commission did vote in favor of this rezoning. This is a property that was a fourplex, has been so since the mid-60s. The new owner, had purchased it and wishes to make some improvements to the building. And so it was legal non-conforming, and that's the reason for this rezoning. I have no new information to add.
With that, we'll close the public hearing. Madam City Clerk.
Bill number 22-083, an ordinance approving a rezoning from District R12 single-family residential to District R18 PUD medium-density residential planned unit development and approving a preliminary development plan for the property 8718, 8718.5, 8720, 8720.5 East US 24 Highway in Independence, Missouri. Second and final reading.
Anyone, any further discussion? No further discussion. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Fierce?
Yes.
Perkins?
Yes.
Stewart?
Yes.
Steinmeier?
Yes.
Hobart?
Yes.
Mayor Rowland?
Yes. This will bring us to our next public hearing. And please proceed.
Sorry. A public hearing for the application by Ashley Smith requesting a rezoning from R6 single-family residential to R18 PUD moderate density residential planned unit development and approving a preliminary development plan for the property located at 2350 South Hayden Street. New information only.
Thank you again. This rezoning was considered by Planning Commission on August 23rd of this year. Planning Commission did vote in favor of this rezoning. This is the villas at Windmill Fields, the 108-unit townhome development that's proposed south of the new car wash there on 23rd Street west of Discount Tire. I do have new information to provide. In your packet, there was a memorandum and an email from Catherine Sanders, which is representing the Discount Tire store, MOK05, which is what that store is designated as. I'll just summarize what that email said, but essentially in there, the Discount Tire has represented that they had discussions with the landowner back in 2019, that they discussed an access agreement through that property. At the time, the proposal had little information, and Discount Tire had declined to participate, pointing out safety issues with vehicles through their property. It also points out that the information that the single-family property that's to the west has an egress easement along the west side of the Discount property. Per the code, this information has been submitted to the Director of Community Development and our legal counsel, and the legal counsel's determination is that this does qualify to be heard as new information. However, per the code, the City Council has a final decision as to whether or not this submitted information is to be considered as new information. And that is all I have for that. Thank you.
This will close the public hearing. We need a motion to accept the new information.
So moved.
Got a motion? Do we have a second?
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion on accepting this new information? Hearing none, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Fierce?
Yes.
Perkins?
Yes.
Stewart?
Yes.
Steinmeier?
Yes.
Hobart?
Yes.
Mayor Rowland?
Yes. Thank you. Okay. Go ahead and read it.
Bill number 22-084, an ordinance approving a rezoning from District R6 single-family residential to District R18 PUD moderate density residential planned unit development and approving a preliminary development plan for the property at 2350 South Hayden Street, 1250 South Hayden Street in Independence, Missouri. Second and final reading.
Mr. Mayor,
Proceed.
to move to postpone this indefinitely, if I receive a second, I'll speak to it.
Second. We got a motion and a second to postpone indefinitely. Please proceed.
So certainly in favor of development in our city, and would like to see that property developed. I am seriously concerned about the traffic relative to this, especially one of the documentation that we received as a council spoke that a significant piece of it was the use of the Discount Tire property to go out to the stoplight there on 23rd Street. Without that, I don't see any way that we can approve this, so I'd like to move to postpone this indefinitely, and would like to encourage my colleagues to do so, to be able to try to let the owners realize some agreement on that, and also to address some of the other concerns that have been raised by the neighbors in the area.
Any further discussion?
Mayor,
Proceed.
not too long ago, last year, we had a convenience store on Lee Summit Road by Home Depot that created a lot of concern with, and ironically, that convenience store sat in District 4, and then the neighborhood that was concerned about it was in my district. The city was kind of in a precarious situation with that particular location. I was just sitting here thinking about when government works with business, which it should, and its residents, which it should, we were able to come to a resolution. But it took meetings, it took planning, it took discussions, and it took a settling of minds. And we would not offer any type of approval until the residents of the 3rd District were lined up with the business in that 4th District. So I know that if the city, because there's confusion on the city's part for decades of what the role and responsibility was to handle the water issues that were never addressed. We have a businessman who's willing to invest in our community and do some things, but we have a community that has suffered the pains of that. And so I would like to see us have a concerted effort to bring all parties together and work through it, not on emotion, but on benefit. What is the features and the advantages and benefits of having a business in that location? And is it something they'll find acceptable? I don't know. But I think that a discussion it's worth having, correct? What?
I'm sorry, I'm looking at Becky, I'm sorry.
That's okay. So I just wanted to make sure I wasn't saying something.
No, I'm looking at you. I'm looking at Becky because I'm getting ready to say something.
Well, I object. So I'm in favor of putting this back on the table and bringing all the parties together and see if a resolution can be found, a solution can be found, before we just absolutely say no. Otherwise, if we're forced to vote tonight, I'll stand with the residents.
Okay. And you wanted to add some information?
I did want to add something. So currently, the motion that was put forward was a motion to postpone indefinitely, which just sort of sends it out there. Pursuant to the city code, following the public hearing that the council has, the council may either adopt, modify, or reject the proposed ordinance, or remand with instructions back to the Planning Commission for further consideration. So it worked. I know you've done this before, and the reason it was okay then was because there was no recommendation from the Planning Commission when you did this previously. It was a tie vote on that particular item, so there was no recommendation, so it was okay in that scenario. In this scenario, there is a recommendation from the Planning Commission, and therefore, per the code, your option is either to do something with it now or send it back to them. Does that make sense?
I'd be in favor of remanding back to, and let every party be involved again.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, please proceed.
I'll modify my motion then to, with approval of the second, to remand back to the Planning Commission for further discussion and adjustment.
Is there a second to remanding it to, so we were withdrawing your first motion?
Correct.
and you're going to ask for a second and then to remand it back to the Planning Commission.
I'll second.
We've got a motion and a second. Any further discussion on that?
Mr. Mayor,
Please proceed.
I'm not sure if it's at all possible, but since there was new information submitted, is it possible to hear from the developer on this to find out about the discount tire, his perspective?
I didn't hear your question
Is it
clearly. I'm
possible
sorry.
to actually hear from Mr. McBee, the developer, about the discount tire, since it was given to us as new information?
I'm kind of
This point,
reluctant
not
to actually open this up as a public hearing at this point and have those kinds of questions. I think that's why we'll remand it back and do that. I understand your question, but I think that's where we do those kinds of questions offline. I mean, we can certainly talk, you can certainly talk to Mr. McBee after the meeting, but, you know, you see where I'm going with this. We just,
Sure.
we
Yes.
can't open them up and make all of our meetings public hearings at our will.
So also, there's a process in the code for submitting new information, and so that was followed in this situation with the information that was provided to you all to then accept or not. So it doesn't, it's limited to that information. It doesn't just sort of open the hearing up generally. It's just limited to the information submitted per the code.
And that's why we had to vote to allow that to be submitted.
Right, exactly. Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor.
Please proceed.
I just want to remind the council that part of the citizens' concerns were they felt like they weren't heard at planning and zoning, and that needs to be made clear back to them that they need to have a thorough and fair, open hearing to allow both the developer and the residents to have opportunity to speak, and that they have, that they don't get closed out of that process.
You're saying, if I'm hearing you correctly, the citizens being closed out from the process of being heard.
Yes, sir. That's what they said in the last, our last council meeting, that they were shut out of the hearing before it was actually completed. So I want to make sure that planning and zoning gives them the time that they need to come forward and share concerns, as well as the developer, and let them see if they can come to some solution.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Please proceed.
thank you, sir. I know it's odd on teams. I agree with, that is a big head I've got. I agree with Councilmember Steinmeier. I worked on the other side of that convenience store, and what I would say is that a wise developer would get together with every person in that neighborhood whose daily life will be affected to see if they can find a common ground.
Okay.
I'll vote to remand it. Otherwise, I would have been a no vote.
Okay. Any further discussion? I will say this, and this helps citizens and developers going forward. I am a big fan of when you bring something to the city council, we have kumbaya moment. And that is that all of the citizens' concerns, or a propensity, a strong propensity of their concerns have been addressed, and that we come to a conclusion that everyone can say, yes, I'm in favor of this proposal, I'm in favor of this process. It's very, very important in the legislative body to make that happen. And if that's the will of this council, to have that kind of a process heard. But I agree with you, Councilmember Steinmeier, I can't agree with you, Councilmember Hobart, that we have to have folks that have been heard, the citizens as well as everybody involved with the process, and to make sure that they're heard, but also to make sure that when we come to that conclusion, that we want to have a thumbs up from many, many people saying, yes, we're good with this process, and that we're good with the way that it's been handled. That's what I would like to do, and prior arrangements working on issues in the legislature, that was my concern, and I like it when we get to a point where we have that, where all of the problems are worked out before they bring it to us, and then we certainly are just going to do an up and down vote. That's my process. That's what I would like to see, and that's what I'm hearing all of our members of the council saying. Okay? With that, no other discussion. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll on remanding it back to the Planning Commission.
Councilmember Spheres?
Yes.
Perkins?
Yes.
Stewart?
Yes.
Steinmeier?
Yes.
Hobart?
Yes.
Mayor Rowland?
Yes. Okay, And we'll open a public hearing on,
Public hearing for the application by Cortland Thurman requesting a special use permit to operate a used vehicle sales business at 9304 East US 40 Highway. New information only.
Thank you. This is a special use permit that was considered by Planning Commission on August 23rd. Of the members present of the Planning Commission did vote 3-2 in favor of the special use permit. This would allow the operation of a used car lot at 9304 East 40 Highway, the location of the old Ace Radiator Repair Shop, which is now the current Midwest Customs Automotive. I have no new information to provide.
is it okay if I ask a couple of questions? Okay, need to close the public hearing. Okay. And then read the bill and we'll have questions. Thank you.
Bill number 22-085, an ordinance approving a special use permit to operate automotive sales lot at 9304 East US 40 Highway in Independence, Missouri. Second and final reading.
If I'm correct, this is the car lot that's had a lot of attention from city staff. Am I correct on that? Or am I giving the wrong address?
Yes. Yeah, there's currently a open violation on it.
And what's the open violation?
Junk, trash, debris, and
Okay.
inoperable vehicles, I believe. Go ahead.
I've actually driven there. I went and looked at the location. It was several months ago. Have they made a strong effort to clean up the property, get rid of the vehicles, things like that?
It is still currently open. I believe there is a court case scheduled for November.
Okay. But my question is, if I may, and I'm not trying to be difficult,
No.
is there was a lot of junk cars there. Matter of fact, to the point where it was difficult to even walk on the lot as a human being, besides drive a car through there. Is there still that level of vehicle parking, that level of vehicles parked on that property?
Yes, as far as I know, they're still there. Yeah, I don't think there's been any
Okay.
improvement.
Without that being cleaned up, I would not change my opinion. So thank you very much. Appreciate it. Any other further discussion or questions? Seeing none, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Mayor?
Yep.
Mr. Mayor, I'm so
Please.
sorry.
No worries.
May I ask a question to the acting city manager, Mr. Norris,
Proceed.
or assistant, pardon me? Mr. Norris, don't we have an inordinate amount of used car lots for our population? Is that ringing a bell?
Yeah, Community Development Director Tom Scannell and I were just discussing that very matter, yes. I don't know what inordinate might mean, but we are evaluating the number of car lots in the city and if it is an excessive amount.
I remember talking to somebody, and it's 5 times or 10 times the normal amount. So on top of the property owner's lack of concern for city code, I would also vote against it for the citizen concern and for that we just don't need any more car lots, and certainly not on 40 Highway. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You're welcome. Mr. Deputy City Clerk, could I ask you a quick question, please? And this would be one I could certainly do offline. Can you do a per capita calculation of car lots to people in the city of Independence and compare that to, say, Blue Springs, Lee Summit, other surrounding areas? I know that's a simple question, but I like matrices.
We're actually conducting that right now. So,
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So either I read your mind or maybe you told me that and I remembered it. So
Great minds think alike.
there you go. Thank you, my friend. Anyone else? Further discussion on this matter? Seeing none, Madam City Clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Spheres?
No.
Perkins?
No.
Stewart?
No.
Steinmeier?
No.
Hobart?
No.
Mayor Rowland?
I could vote yes just to be contrarian, but I'll vote no. All right, that brings us to the next item, 22085, if I'm correct. Oh, nope, Public hearing, sorry. Go for a public hearing. Here we go. Thank you.
A public hearing for the application by Ashley Smith requesting a special use permit to operate a car wash at 4121 Little Blue Parkway. New information only.
Busy night. Thank you again. This is a special use permit that was considered by Planning Commission on August 23rd as well. Planning Commission did vote in favor of this rezoning. This is for the construction of a new tunnel car wash at the southwest corner of the Menards development site, which would be the northeast side of the I-70 Little Blue Parkway interchange. And I have no new information to provide.
Okay. Thank you very much. So close the public hearing. Please proceed.
Bill number 22-086, an ordinance approving a special use permit to operate a tunnel car wash at 4121 South Little Blue Parkway in Independence, Missouri. Second and final reading.
Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Spheres?
Yes.
Perkins? Yes. Stewart?
Yes.
Steinmeier?
Yes.
Hobart?
Yes.
Mayor Rowland.
Yes. And this will open a public hearing.
A public hearing for the application by Mick Slutter for a preliminary development plan approval for an addition to the Apex Senior Living Center located at 810 East Walnut. New information only.
Thank you. This preliminary development plan was also considered on Planning Commission at August 23rd of this year. Planning Commission did vote in favor of this rezoning. This is for the construction of a dialysis center, which is attached to the Apex, or what is now the Carmel Hills Senior Living Facility. This center would be open to both residents and non-residents. I have no new information to provide.
Thank you very much. That'll close the public hearing. Madam City Clerk, please proceed.
Bill number 22-087, an ordinance approving a preliminary development plan for the property at 810 East Walnut in District R18, PUD, medium density residential planned unit development in Independence, Missouri. Second and final reading.
Any discussion?
Mr. Mayor,
Proceed.
this property, is it mainly a residential area that it's in, or Mr. Aurora?
There are residential areas around it, yes.
Okay. I've heard some concerns from the residents of putting this facility in, so I'll be voting no on it. Thank you.
Any further discussion?
Mr. Mayor.
Proceed.
I too have heard some concerns about that from some of the neighbors, primarily relative to from the backside of the property. And I think what would solve that issue would be a fence. If we could ask the living center there to add a fence across the back of their property, that would solve most of the problems. And so I would be in favor of making a motion to add that stipulation.
We've got a motion to add the stipulation of a fence. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to add a fence to it. Any further discussion on the motion to add a fence? You're good with everybody now. We'll say the fence is a fix, right? Okay. All right, any further discussion on that? Madam City Clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Spheres?
Yes.
Perkins?
Yes.
Stewart? Steinmeier?
No.
Hobart?
Yes.
Mayor Rowland.
Yes. Okay, I'm sorry, what? Then we got to need approval of the motion. Okay, any further discussion on the motion at hand on the ordinance? Seeing none, Madam City Clerk, please proceed.
Councilmember Spheres?
Yes.
Perkins?
Yes.
Stewart?
No.
Steinmeier?
No.
Hobart?
Yes.
Mayor Rowland.
Yes. And that brings us to non-ordinance items. Madam City Clerk, please proceed.
Bill number 22-771, a resolution affirming the City Council's adherence to certain provisions of the city's personnel policies and procedures, as well as certain administrative policies of the City of Independence.
Okay, any discussion?
Mr. Mayor,
Please proceed.
I would actually like a make a motion to allow the revised resolution titled Proposed Amended Resolution 2.0 to be substituted.
Is there a
I'll
second
second that.
for the substitute? Okay.
Yes.
Any discussion on adding the substitution to this proposal?
I just have a couple questions.
Please proceed.
What specifically are we focused on in terms of the change? What did we do? What did you, I assumed you, Jeremy,
Yes,
wrote
sir.
this. So what specifically did you change that makes this a better resolution, more palatable for me?
So there's sort of two overarching changes. One is to the specific policies that are covered by this resolution, and then the second is to the process that is put in place for alleged violations of that. So some of the policies that were listed before, which again, they come out of either the city's personnel policy manual or the administrative policies that are put out by the city manager's office, while makes sense in theory that sort of everyone associated with the city should comply with, when applied to city council members, some of them just didn't work in reality. And so, in terms of demotion, well, city council members can't be demoted, right? I mean, there's some of that that just doesn't make sense. And so it wasn't about necessarily weeding those out, but there were several that, at a minimum, Mayor and Councilmember Stewart could agree on that should be covered for city council members, and that made sense the way they were currently written for the most part. So the ones that we have, we've removed the majority of the ones that were listed. What we have left with is in section 1 from the personnel policies procedures. It's the sexual harassment policy, also the other harassment policy. So those two would be covered. And then from the city's administrative policies, it's the internal investigation of sexual harassment, and discrimination complaints, and the workplace violence. So at least, again, between the mayor and Councilmember Stewart, which are who I talked with about this, they agreed that those were definitely ones that made sense. Generally, that language, worked with you all. I do have a caveat in there in section 3 that says that to the extent any of the policies stated herein contain language or provisions that are inapplicable to city council members or inconsistent with the city charter or city code as they relate to city council members, then such language or provisions shall not be agreed to or complied with. In other words, while those policies generally fit and can be made applied to you all, if there is language in there that doesn't work, well, then we're not counting that language. But this was, sort of as close as we get. The other, again, overall change in terms of process was, instead of flowing through either the I think it was the personnel board? Yeah, the personnel board or the human resources department, that instead it would essentially be handled, any allegations would flow through the city councilor's office and set forth that policy, as opposed to kind of going through other boards or other city departments. We just tried to streamline that as much as possible. Again, recognizing that as the governing body, there are practical differences between what can happen to you all and what can happen to other employees. So those are kind of the two overarching changes.
Yeah, it's the part where we're being asked to comply with what city staff goes through, which is fine, but they're employees of the city.
Yes, sir.
We're not. We're elected officials. And so in the past, it's always been my understanding is that if there was an issue of impropriety, that was, if there was a formal complaint, that it was brought to the council, and then we went in executive session to discuss it. Correct?
I think it depends on what the specific allegation is. I mean, there's also the ethics commission that the charter sets up that governs certain conduct and activities. So it would depend on the specific complaint or allegation. I tried to mimic this as kind of close to what I believe has been the past practice as much as possible.
Sure, and that's right. That's how the council's supposed to judge it. What does the charter say?
Right.
That's our law. This is conduct, and this is what the expectations are, both from us holding each other accountable and to the public as well.
Correct. And so if you look at section 6, upon the completion of the third-party investigation, the city councilor shall submit the findings to the city council for the body to take appropriate action consistent with the city charter and city code. So it's, in the end, it's up to you all to do whatever you think is appropriate based on whatever information comes out of that.
So who's handling the complaint? You?
I would be handling the complaint.
And then you're taking it to an outside investigator to look into it?
That's how it's currently set up, yes.
Okay. And so then they come in, they say yes, no, and then you come in with what? The findings?
With whatever they said.
Do you make recommendations as to what happens at that point, or does that fall upon us?
I don't have it in here that I'm making a recommendation. I just have it in here that essentially I'm passing along the findings of the third-party investigator.
Yeah. And so here's my concern with this, and I understand the heart of it. I just disagree with some of the practicality side. A few things stand out. Number one, I see I see the policies and the training that was supposed to be put into place that we're supposed to go through. I asked for that because when we discussed this back in the beginning, we said they would have to be revised. It's something that HR would have to do. Is that correct? Do you remember that conversation and when we were all together?
Sure. I mean, yeah, generally, HR handles revisions to the personnel policy.
And they would have
yes.
to be for the council.
I mean, if we were to, there are a number of policies that, as written, would not apply to you all. That's
Right.
correct. I mean, they would either need to be revised or, I mean, the practical matter is even revising them is only going to do so much, because in the end, as the elected officials, there is it's different to what your repercussions are than what employees are. So I mean, yes, they could be revised, but there's only so much we can revise to make them apply to you.
And that's fine. I just had asked that when we got the revision,
Okay.
that we would be allowed to look at those, whatever the training agenda would be and what that revision is, so that we could compare it.
Okay.
I don't know if you recall that, but I did ask that.
I don't recall that. This was, I know this generally came out of that training session that we had. No, I don't specifically remember that conversation. This sort of compromise that is presented to you here was, generally again what had, sort of been worked out between the mayor and Councilmember Stewart. I recognize that obviously that all of you weren't a part of that conversation, but it was the two of them that seemed to have the strongest feelings about this previously, and so that's who I worked with to come up with this current version.
Yeah, I still think I still think that it creates a hybrid position for the council, and I still think that it has conflicts with the charter. That's just my personal opinion. I looked at 2.1. 2.1 covers a lot of things. I still think that these are things that I'm concerned with. I know that the end goal is to prevent sexual harassment, workplace violence. Does everybody in the city take those? All city staff, are they required to take workplace violence, sexual harassment, all the things that we're being asked to go through?
We're not asking you to necessarily participate in any sort of training. It's just acknowledgement of the policy. I'd have to defer to the HR department or someone else who knows what trainings are required of all city employees. I'm not aware of that.
So if a new council comes on board, they refuse to take they have a conflict with it, they think it's in conflict with the charter, they refuse to do it, what happens at that point?
So it's not about what is being requested here, if per the way this is written right now, is that for these specific policies there would be an acceptance and acknowledgement by you all. So it's about looking at the policies and saying I agree to that. It's not, there's no training component mixed in, at least not intentionally. So whether or not, and if you didn't, that's why it says in here that, because again, it's not being forced upon you. It's not you shall sign this.
Right.
You're requested to sign this. However, then after each one of these events, whether that be an onboarding or a revision of the policies, that's why the city clerk is directed to let you all know who did and did not sign the policy. And then it's up to you all if you want to try to, convince each other that you should or shouldn't or do something different. That's the extent of what would happen.
Right. The council for many decades has worked on it's worked with the level of trust. We have to be willing and able to trust each other. When trust is violated, of course, then that becomes a problem. I don't see where we need to weaponize our relationship one against another. And I fear that this could be something down the road. I'm not saying this council, but somewhere down the road. And I worry that it somehow will reflect upon the city staff. It complicates matters. We have, the people elect us to act in a certain and appropriate way and hold each other accountable. I've always felt like that's an appropriate action. Charter actually talks about that. So we can determine that. So my concern is that at some point this could be a political weaponization against one or two or three in the council, and I just would hate for that to happen down the road. I don't think that this fully lines up with the existing charter, and I struggle with it, and I do think it creates a hybrid employment situation with the council, and I think what we've had to this point in terms of accountability one to another should be our guideline. So I appreciate you spending the time to write it up. I'm not going to be able to support it, though. Thank you.
Any further discussion? No further discussion. I have a lot to say about this. I want to thank Councilmember Stewart for his work to a compromise and come to an agreement. I have asked a whole host of people to meet with me and to discuss this matter, and that didn't happen. We have an obligation at this city, as elected officials, to be held to a higher standard. And that standard is that we will treat staff respectfully, professionally, and we will be businesslike. And I will not accept any less under any circumstances, under any framework. Can we have a disagreement? We may. Can we have a spirited discussion? Absolutely. Should we ever cross the line? No. Have there been times in the past where elected officials, in my opinion, have in fact crossed those lines? Yes, they have. And there has been no accountability by councils in the past to address this issue. And it is our responsibility as elected officials to find a way to hold each other accountable for their behaviors. I will not sit in this chair with this responsibility and allow elected officials not to be held accountable and to use their position to say they're elected and so therefore they're above reproach. I have tremendous reservations about that. And I have been working for months to get this point here. This is one of the reasons that I am so concerned about the Charter Commission, because the charter needs to be changed to address issues like this because it was not addressed in the charter that we currently have. And this is one of the major concerns of it. It's also the reason I'm pushing so hard to get ethics reform and talking about how we conduct ourselves ethically within this city. And so I am going to be a robust yes on this, but I will tell you it does not go as far as it needs to be, but politics is the art of the possible. And this is what we got to today with regards to the possible. But I hope it is very clear to everyone here. We will conduct ourselves with a different standard moving forward than the standards in the past. With that, Mayor, City Clerk, please call the roll.
Mayor, before
We're calling the roll. Thank you very much.
Point of order, I'd like to
What's your point of order?
I would like to have one more point
Your point of order is ruled out of order. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Spheres,
Yes.
Perkins,
Yes.
Stewart,
Yes.
Steinmeier,
I'll pass.
Hobart,
Yes.
Mayor Rowland,
Yes.
Councilmember Steinmeier.
Councilmember Steinmeier, you have 20 seconds to record your vote.
Yeah. So it's the trust issue. Okay. So, no.
Okay, thank you very much. The motion carries. Madam City Clerk, we have another motion, 22087, or excuse me, 22807, is that correct?
No, we'll need to approve 22771.
Okay, excuse me. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you. Yep. Okay. What was the motion we just carried?
The motion that you guys just approved was a motion to substitute the resolution.
That's
That's
right.
essentially an amendment.
Okay, thank you. So we've approved the amendment, now we need to make the motion. Very good. Madam City, any discussion on the motion at hand? Hearing none, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Spheres?
Yes.
Perkins?
Yes.
Stewart?
Yes.
Steinmeier?
No.
Hobart?
Yes.
Mayor Rowland?
Yes. Did motion carry? Okay. Now we're to 22807?
Yes.
Okay. Go ahead and please read that.
Bill number 22-807. A resolution establishing the Independence FIFA World Cup Advisory Committee.
Any discussion on this?
Mr. Mayor,
Please proceed.
so the last couple of weeks, I don't know, even in study sessions and meetings, we keep hearing that we should eliminate some committees. And we don't have enough people, we don't have enough volunteers, we don't have quorums. So, I mean, I kind of understand the importance of this, but why are we going to add some more that we possibly won't even be able to get the members for? That's all I have.
Okay. Anyone else?
I have the same question. If tonight we're going to be looking at reducing committees on levies, where we're collecting tax money, and reducing oversight from 14 voices down to 7. I'm wondering why we want to create 2 new committees when we said the reasoning behind wanting to reduce these committee sizes is because we were having trouble getting volunteers. This resolution and the next one we're going to be talking about, I think, require some leadership in it. I'm hoping that you, Mr. Mayor, will take a point on this. I mean, we saw Mayor Weir, she was always involved in these big regional discussions and both of these. And so I'm thinking that rather than having a committee, we should incorporate them to the tourism, parks, or both.
So is that a motion to remit these to tourism and parks, or both?
Just a discussion.
Okay.
And if that's where people want to go, that's fine. I think that both of these are a major concern for our city and the future of its revenue and attracting people here. And I know with Mayor Weir, she was involved in all those discussions, and she was very active with that. And so I think it would be good to have our mayor participate in these discussions.
Okay, any further discussion? Any further discussion? With that, Madam City Clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Spears?
Yes.
Perkins?
Yes.
Stewart?
No.
Steinmeier?
No.
Hobart?
Yes.
Mayor Rowland?
I'll vote yes, thank you. Can you proceed to 22-808, please?
Bill number 22-808, a resolution establishing the Independence NFL Draft Advisory Committee.
Okay, any further discussion on this?
Mr. Mayor?
Please proceed.
I brought this to the city in 2019. I was on the Parks Commission. I sat in the commission. The arena falls under the Parks Department. We talked about this. I had a discussion with Mayor Weir. I believe she went as high as Roger Goodell and had discussions with him. She said there was licensing issues and it would be an expensive endeavor to do. However, there were things that we could do in order to be attractive to the amount of people that would be here in the metro area for this particular event. So, again, I think this is one of those situations where, since Mayor Weir was actively involved, I think our mayor should get involved with this, and if there's anything we can do to attract that and go to tourism or to the parks and see if there's something we could do. It's a little late, but I think we should try. I think this committee is going to just be a dead end, but if that's what the council thinks we should do, that's fine.
Any further discussion?
Mr. Mayor?
Proceed.
I think Council Member Steinmeier is pretty well versed on this thing. I'm not. I believe the resolution allows us to appoint a chairperson. I would make a motion for Council Member Steinmeier to chair this committee.
We've got a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We've got a motion and a second. Proceed.
You can't do that if it's not approved.
Okay. So we've been informed we have to have the committee approved first and then offer the chair. So would we have to do that at another city council meeting?
I mean, if you want to make a motion, I'm not familiar with the resolution draft.
Okay.
If you have more information.
Mr. Cover, could you give us an update? Are we out of line by doing that?
You can't appoint a chair to something that doesn't exist. So if you all approve the creation of it, then at that point, then yeah, you could appoint it.
Yeah, but my question is, could we appoint a chair this evening? I mean, because it's not on the agenda and hasn't been given notice.
Then no, I would say it wouldn't
Have to
be
do it the next council meeting.
You'd have to do it the next council meeting. It's not, and we would do that through our normal appointment process.
Okay.
So because obviously it's going to need, if you approve the commission, it's going to need people, and so at that point, whoever you pick would just be, you would designate that person as the chair on the appointment, and that would do that. So yeah, you couldn't do it now tonight, but we could do it the next meeting.
Okay. Very good. So when you,
I'll withdraw my motion. I'll withdraw my motion, Mr. Mayor. My apologies. I didn't.
No worries.
Violate the rule.
Very good. Any further discussion on the issue at hand? Seeing no further discussion, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Spheres?
Yes.
Perkins?
Yes.
Stewart?
No.
Steinmeier?
No.
Hobart?
Yes.
Mayor Rowland?
Yes. Thank you. All right, we go to 22-809, please.
Bill number 22-809, a resolution expressing the desire of the Independent City Council to engage the city of Kansas City, Missouri in frequent, clear, and meaningful dialogue regarding the future plans for the Truman Sports Complex.
Any further discussion on this?
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Fierce was recognized first. I'll come back to you second. Thank you, sir.
So I asked the city manager to, well, basically what I did is I expressed concern. Whoop, better turn my mic on, sorry about that. I expressed concern to the city manager about hearing that discussions were being held, in the future about moving the Royal Stadium. And I asked if we had anybody at that table. And the answer was no, we don't have anybody at that table. So I asked the city manager that if it would be appropriate for us to try to be involved in that discussion. And he said yes, and this is the result of that request. So I just feel like we need some presence at the table when we are impacted as much as we are by any change that might happen with Royal Stadium. And so the economic impact and other impacts would be tremendous if that were moved. Hopefully that never happens. I think we have a great Royal Stadium. I can't even believe they're talking about it, given the amount of money they put into it recently, building, or remodeling it. But nevertheless, I just think we ought to have someone at the table, and so that's the reason for this resolution.
Any further discussion?
Mr. Mayor.
I should have called on you. I apologize.
I just wanted to say, I think your concerns are valid, Councilmember Fierce, and I'll be voting yes. I think we need to do what we can, because that would be a huge cost of revenue if it gets moved, so.
Any further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Spheres?
Yes.
Perkins?
Yes.
Stewart?
Yes.
Steinmeier?
Yes.
Hobart?
Yes.
Mayor Rowland?
Yes. 22-810, please.
Bill number 22-810, a resolution directing the city manager to pursue a forensic audit that evaluates the finances of the Independence Power and Light Department.
Any discussion?
Well, since I was asked, Mr. Mayor, to...
Proceed.
Thank you. Since I was asked to justify this, we had the director here a few weeks ago that talked about possibly being $3 to $9 million behind. And I have some questions about other things, about whether we are, now that we've moved from paper to a computer process and paying fees, I want to make sure that IPL is being paid what's due to them and collected. So I think it's overdue. I think we have some hard decisions to make with IPL, and we really need, there's so many discussions on how much money we owe and what our expenses are and rates and permit costs and things like this. I think it's time for the people to have an accountability of their utility. So I think it's time for us to have these audits and put them in place.
Any discussion?
Mr. Mayor?
Please proceed.
Don't we, the IPL is part of the annual audit that is conducted and received by the Audit and Finance Committee, I believe. I've not been through that process yet, but I guess I'm trying to understand the reason for this. In fact, I'm not sure it's not really out of order, given that we already do an audit. So I'm not sure. So I'm going to vote no, because I don't understand it seems redundant to me.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Please proceed.
the Audit Finance Committee every year receives what's called the single audit report from our third-party auditor. When I first started on audit and finance 2 years ago, we had three, I think there were three, and I'll get the terminology wrong, but three major deficiencies and one minor deficiency. Now, major, minor, those are terms of art, and I may be wrong on what they were, but we did have some significant problems in different areas of the city accounts. Those were fixed in a year, and the next audit that we had was spotless. We thought we were going to get the single audit report for last fiscal year in October. It looks like it's going to be December, but that the person, Chester Moyer, that represents our that represents the third party that does this single audit report, came before this very council just earlier this year and explained all the facets of it. And he talked about how there's no such thing as a forensic audit. In fact, it was some of his comments that ended up leading to the performance audit that is happening with the Staywell Fund. So, no, a forensic audit or some comprehensive, I don't even know what would be asked. IPL right now is currently in good standing with the third party auditor. We'll find out at the end of this year if they still are. And additionally, this didn't come through our committee. So I'll vote no on it. Agree with Mr. Fears. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
If I could, I just have questions about what is the intent of the forensic audit? What is the outcome that is looked at? How do we measure success on this? There's basically 5 types of audits or procedures that occur with regards to a financial organization, a city, or an IPL, or anything like that. There's a forensic audit. This is an accounting term that actually does not exist according to our auditor. What accountants are referring to as a forensic audit services because there is no standard outcome for a forensic audit services. He says typically these engagements are structured around litigation or other critical issues. Basically, in my experience with forensic audits, they are conducted when there's in fact a serious concern of malfeasance. And when you have malfeasance, someone is pointed to that who is in fact being accused of malfeasance. And then you're also pointing to some department or some way that the books are completely and significantly out of bounds. We haven't seen that with our audits, and we would need that to be addressed in order to do that. There are other things that we do. We have a financial audit. This is a criteria of a financial audit determined by AICPA, and other regulators can layer on and this auditing procedure. Mr. Deputy City Manager, if I can ask for a second, we do have a financial audit of IPL, is that correct?
Yeah, they're part of the overall audit that we do annually, yes.
And when do they typically start and when do they typically finish?
They start right after year end, and it'll be completed our fiscal year end, so that's just wrapped up, and they'll be complete after right around the first of the year with everything.
Okay. So roughly 6 months to complete the audit is what I'm hearing you say?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And so that financial audit, if I'm hearing correctly from Councilmember Hobart, there was no, in fact, material deficiencies found in that material audit in our most recent one. There have been in the past, but those audit deficiencies have in fact been rectified, and we now are in a situation where you do not have any material deficiencies outstanding with any of the audits, if I'm understanding you correctly.
Yes, thanks to
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Sorry, Mr. Hobart, I was asking Mr. Norris.
Yes, thanks to the good work of our finance department and our employees, we were able to address all those and have a clean audit this last year.
Okay. Councilmember Steinmeier, if you're, I'm in favor of what you're saying here. It's just we've got to define what the rules are and what our success looks like. If we're looking for a financial audit or a financial review, and are our rates sufficient to help the organization be sustainable, I'm completely and absolutely in favor of that. But we just got to identify the proper terms and terminology to make sure that we proceed in the proper way.
Well, I'd like to take just a moment to disagree with what your information from who you asked about a forensic. When we started the overtime investigation with the investigator, Mr. Nelson, we were all encouraged to call and talk with him and speak with him. And I asked him about, because this council tried to tell me that the only time it was forensic is when there's criminal activity. And I asked him. Now, this is a man that we trusted to bring an overtime hearing or an overtime investigation to our city. We paid him well to do so. And I asked him, I said, is a forensic audit, is that something we do when we're looking for criminal activity? And he chuckled and said, no, who told you that? And I said, well, that's kind of the consensus of some of my colleagues. And he says, I'd be happy to come and address that. He said, I've done many forensic audits, and it's just a different way, a deeper dive into the auditing practice. He said, but no, it's not looking intentionally for criminal activity. It's just doing deep dives and connecting dots if possible, or if necessary, for other areas to look into. So, since we have a disagreement on what it is, that's the reason why I brought it back up, is because it's a deeper dive. $6 to $9 million, $3 to $9 million in our utility as a deficit is no small change. I think the people deserve to know why we're $6 to $9 million behind this year. And if we don't want to know, then I understand. But I think that when we know that we're headed in this direction, I think it's time to look at it. And there's some other areas of concern that I think we should be looking at as well. So I just take issue with the idea that forensic implies criminal. It doesn't.
So, I mean, this is precisely the reason I don't want to bring these matters to City Council. That's why I want to create a committee or a study session process. The reason we're here is because we're confused, we haven't had clarity, and we have a clear position. City Council meetings need to be a business meeting with clear definitions of what we're talking about, with the homework done and everything resolved. Right now, we're actually almost doing a study session inside of a City Council meeting, and I've asked my colleagues, and we're close to getting a resolution on that. Again, politics is the art of the possible, but I think this is a great discussion to have at a study session to make sure that we define exactly what we're looking for. Because am I so concerned as you are? Yes, Mr. Councilmember, I am as concerned as you are. Matter of fact, more so. I've asked for a whole host of procedures to be looked at in the last 3 months, as soon as I was elected. And Councilmember Hobart and myself have worked extensively to talk about what is our rate structure, is our rate structure competitive, what is the financial standings of the IPL. There's a whole host of things to look at. But when we directed staff to do that, we had to have absolutely a clear directive of what we're doing. And all I'm asking is, can we get a clear directive of exactly what success looks like in this situation? And I'm happy to proceed once I have a definition of a clear definition of success.
Mr. Mayor, if I
Please
might
proceed.
add on. Thank you. Not to get in the weeds with definitions for forensic audit, what's not a forensic audit. I went through and looked at the audit and finance meeting that Councilman Hobart and myself were attending, that went through all of that. But more specifically and straighter to the point, when this discussion was brought up some time ago, being on the Audit and Finance Committee, these concerns were brought up. We're not downplaying these concerns. If you have very specific concerns, line them out. It is the responsibility for the Audit and Finance Committee to work through those concerns that you have. We've had a budget process and a budget that was adopted. There wasn't any concerns brought up that were reached to such a level from any of my colleagues up here. Again, the same thing that I said months and months ago. If you have a situation, if you have some thoughts, let's sit down, let's work on it, frame your concerns, let's get it to the committee, let's get the people in play that can get these things answered. But opening this up carte blanche with potential hundreds of thousands of dollars being spent with no parameters and no specific concern, that is concerning, and that is not wise, and that leads into investigation with no outcome, investigation for something that's not there. If you have something very specific, we can do that. I mean, I have some thoughts. I mean, if we really need to do a good baseline on Power and Light, let's start at 2014 and go to 2017. That'll give us a great baseline of what's taken place.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if we want to start, I might write a proposal for that. But
I agree.
My same concerns with the same time that we spoke about this. If you have concerns, let's just bring them before to the Audit Finance Committee and let's move forward.
Okay. So is that a proposal to move this item to the Audit and Finance Committee? Can we do that, Mr. Cover?
I mean, that could, right now, yes, you all could recall, if you voted that way, yes, you all could defer that to them if you wanted to.
I mean, that'd be my preference. Would that be suitable?
Yeah, I don't have a problem doing it. I'm just not going to wait till we're $9 million in the hole that we decided that we need to start getting serious about looking at it. So I would be open to that because this utility has different accounting practices. Some of them, you have FERC that we need to look into, and we need to understand those more clearly. I just know that when I hear that we're headed down into a deep deficit, I want to know why. So whether we take this and move it to Audit Finance, or if Audit and Finance heard that and they're asking the questions. I haven't heard that, but I'd sure like to have some understanding of how we're headed into a $6 to $9 million hole, and we're going to wait till it happens before we start asking the right questions. So, however you all want to handle. If you want to do it in audit and finance, I'm fine with that. I just don't want it to be a crisis before we start asking the questions.
Mr. Mayor,
Please
if I
proceed.
can add to that caveat, move it at carte blanche to the Audit Finance. I'm not necessarily opposed to that, but I would like to have some very specific thoughts and parameters of what we're going to look at.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, you're kind of redefining the proposal that if the audit, if you're going to vote in favor of it, you would like to see very specific, maybe bring it back to the City Council and have very specific definitions of exactly what we're going to look at and what does success look like when we in fact do this process.
Absolutely.
Okay. I just want to make sure I understood clearly what you were saying. Do I have a second for that?
Okay, hold on.
Yeah. Well, the motion is that it be brought back to the Audit and Finance Committee, but before the Audit and Finance Committee would accept it, we would have to have clear definitions of what we would in fact be looking at, if I'm understanding you correctly.
Where are you setting those clear definitions? Are you taking it to a study session?
I would, that's a great question. We take it to a study session. I think the audit, Councilmember Hobart, if I can indulge you just for a second.
Yes, sir.
As the chair of the Audit and Finance Committee, if someone were to bring your a proposal to the Audit and Finance Committee, you and the members of that committee could in fact say, yes, we'll proceed, or no, we won't proceed once we have a clear definition of what we're describing. And so what I would ask Councilmember Steinmeier is to bring you a clear definition of what he would like us to look at before that committee would in fact move forward.
Absolutely. And if it, suits the Audit and Finance Committee, we can even assign our management analyst a task or more off the list if we decide that it should take precedence over his other items. So we have a way to start this and not have any money out of pocket and see where it leads.
Okay.
But we do need to know exactly what we're looking at, because it just a base,
Then bring the director
overall
back
thing,
in
it's
a
not-
study session and let's ask him specific questions about the deficit that we're facing. And then
Okay.
we'll
We don't
then
need
we'll
a study
then we'll have
session.
some clarity.
I disagree that Mr. Mayor, we don't need a study session to ask Jim Nail questions. Call him on the phone tomorrow. I mean, let's start doing some homework and trying to solve problems. We don't have to. Jim Nail did like 8 or 9 or 10 study sessions last year or the year before. It's been brutal. He needs to run IPL. You know, let's do some work and address this if it's really important.
Yep.
Mr. Mayor,
Please proceed.
just to keep it real simple, the way I restated this months ago when these topics were brought up, Councilman Steinmeier, if you have some very specific questions and concerns, write them out, bring them to the Audit and Finance Committee, submit them, and we'll review it and we'll go with it. And you're more than welcome to be at that Audit and Finance Committee to discuss.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Well,
Go ahead.
I just want to make sure we're on the same page. So has there, and Becky, correct me if I'm wrong, has there been a motion to approve the resolution to do anything with it? Okay. So in the end, we're going to have to do something with this resolution.
Right.
So it's either we're going to motion to approve it, or we're going to have a motion to postpone it indefinitely, or something like that. But we can't be making other sort of instructions that go along with it.
Right, but I think we can state the will of the council here. And what I'm hearing is, and correct me if I'm wrong, anyone in the council, what I'm hearing is, are they interested in pursuing this and finding out information about what's the financial health of IPL? Absolutely. Am I concerned about it? No question. Have we already started the manager and analyst looking at things regarding to rate studies and things like that? Yes, we have. Did we do that as soon as we were elected? Yes, we did. Do we want to proceed with that? Yes, we do. Are we concerned about the financial health of IPL? No question. The issue before us right now is how do we proceed and make that, and use IPL's resources in an effective way. And I think the best way to do that is you've got to define a success. And success has to be defined around the idea of, okay, if we're going to do an audit, you clearly outline exactly what that audit is going to be. You don't just say, let's do a forensic audit, because then there's no way to do that. Even if we do use the police example as a forensic audit, which is probably the closest thing we've had a forensic audit recently within the city, it was extremely well defined. It was exactly just looking at the overtime issues of the police department. And that is a very, very close example of a forensic audit. If we're going to do a financial audit and find out what is the financial health of IPL, that is a whole different matter completely. And I am very, very happy and want to work at that very much. Mr. Nail, Mr. Norris, and I have talked on a number of occasions specifically on that matter with regards what is the financial health of IPL. So do I want to proceed on that? And that's what I'm trying to do, is reiterate the wishes of this council and just give me a nod to say, yes, that's what we're looking for here, that we want to make sure that IPL is run healthily, that it's a sustainable long-term business, but we also got to do this in a way that is appropriate and uses the taxpayers' money and the ratepayers' money in an appropriate way. So do we want to do this? Absolutely. Is this the approach? I don't think so. Any further discussion? So my recommendation is that we actually vote this motion down. Councilmember Steinmeier, please come forward. We'll be happy to work with you going forward and find a way to define this so we actually look exactly what we're going to look at going forward. Mr. Cover?
The motion needs to be in the positive, so if you're going to vote on it, it has to be a motion to approve and a second. That doesn't mean you have to vote on it.
Right.
That way.
What I'm saying here is I've just tried to reiterate the wish of the council as I hear it. That was a statement. It was not a motion. Okay. What I'm saying is we actually vote down this motion as it's stated here, and then if the council member would like to bring it forward at another time, he is obviously open to do that. But voting this motion down does not preclude him from having the opportunity to bring other items forward going forward, if I'm hearing you correctly.
Correct.
Okay. And that's my wish, and that's what I would like us to do as a body. Good? Everybody good? All right. Any further discussion?
I'll move to approve, Mr. Mayor. No, motion to approve.
It's already on the table, right?
Okay.
We just need to vote.
Yeah. Let's, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Spheres?
No.
Perkins?
No.
Stewart?
Yes.
Steinmeier?
Yes.
Hobart?
No.
Mayor Rowland?
I'm voting no, but I certainly want this done, so we just have to do it in a different matter.
Bill number 22-811, a resolution for the City Council to direct the city manager to post competitive bids and hire a forensic investigation/audit firm to examine and evaluate the City of Independence's fiscal, budgetary, and procurement policies and procedures to ensure transparency and accountability to the taxpayers and the expenditure of public funds.
Any discussion?
Mr. Mayor,
Please proceed.
part of our overtime investigation report that was presented to the residents of this city called for an audit of our city. And it was part of their findings that we needed to do this. This is my third time that I've asked for an audit of our city. And every time in the past it's been voted down. This time with the overtime report, there was a recommendation that the city be audited, and I think it's time. So I'm hoping for some support.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor.
Please proceed.
Thank you. Basically, my comments hold true to this discussion, and I would say again that if you have something specific, the time has not been wasted by the City Council. It has been by you not bringing forth your concerns in a concise manner to the Audit and Finance Committee.
Any further discussion?
Mr. Mayor.
Please proceed.
I'm in agreement with Councilmember Perkins that, every year we get an audit of the city financial records. And we're going to get that here in just a couple of months. So, I don't really, again, this is, in my view, redundant. We get an audit. We are audited every year. We have to do that for a variety of different reasons. I don't understand the need for this. I do agree that audit and finance is the right place for that to happen. And certainly, as being a member of that committee, I fully would appreciate any questions that any of the council members have regarding the finances of the city, because that's what that committee is there to do.
Mr. Mayor,
Please proceed.
so we have an audit once a year, but we still had a police overtime scandal. I don't understand.
That's right.
How's that possible? I say that in jest, but that's all I have for now. Thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Just one more thing. I've heard the audit finance. Why, my question has been, and I haven't brought it to audit and finance, but maybe it's time. We had an overtime abuse. Audit and finance didn't catch it. You guys don't catch everything. There are things that need to be looked at. There are things you can look at, can't look at. This is another set of eyes on our city and their finances. To say that we got to do everything in-house and the way we've always done it, and yet we've had abuse. And this investigation called for that. It called for an audit of our city. Not the way we've done it, because the way we've done it didn't catch anything. The way we need to do it is a fresh beginning. We need to start afresh. We're going to be bringing on a new finance director at some point, I guess, since we don't have one right now. If I was coming on, I would want an audit. I'd want every penny accounted for before I started my job here, and make sure that I knew that what I'm walking into, I would be accountable for, not cleaning up someone else's mess. I think it's the right thing to do. It was called for. Audit and finance didn't catch everything, and here we are. So I'd like to see this time, this council take an aggressive stance and have a deep dive audit into the city's finances.
Any further discussion?
Mr. Mayor, I have one more thing.
Sure.
So we had last meeting, we had an entire list, or maybe it was in a study session, of recommendations that the city manager was going to implement. So we're going to do all that stuff, but this one we're not going to do of the recommendations.
I don't understand your question. Help me understand where you're coming from.
Well, I get the feeling this is probably going to be voted down from the sentiment I get. So we had all those recommendations in the last meeting that we're going to implement, but this one recommendation we're not going to do because it's probably going to get voted down. I don't understand why.
Go back and could you pull up the recommendation you're referring to and read it to us all, please?
I'm sorry, I don't have that line item in front of me.
Okay, I mean, we had a study session last week where we talked about all of those items, and my consensus with all of my colleagues is that we were going to do all of those items. So again, just for the sake of clarity, if we're going to make statements from here, let's have them backed up with facts of exactly what we're talking about, and that's all I'm asking for.
I don't have the exact thing in front of me.
Okay, then do you withdraw your statement?
I'll get back with you on that.
Okay, I love to work with you on it, and I've got to tell you, Mr. Stewart, we've worked well together on the other issue. You spent a lot of time on it. I appreciate that. I appreciate your willingness to go above and beyond, and let's continue to have that discussion. Politics is the art of the possible, and you've shown your ability to do that, so I want to say thank you for that, and I'm happy to work with you going forward. But if we as a body are going to say things from this dais, we've got to have facts that back up exactly what we're saying, and that our definitions are in fact clear, and that we all understand exactly what we're talking about. I'm happy to have I want to know what IPL is, if it's in fact profitable or not profitable. What's the long-term outlook of IPL? Absolutely right that. Have people in the past made decisions that have in fact negatively impacted IPL? I believe they have. So I would love to know all of those things. I would love to go back and look at 14 to 17 like you say. But we need to have clear definitions of those in order to proceed. And as a body, until we have clear definitions, we can't proceed with those items. So that's all we're asking. Any further discussion on this item? Hearing none, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Spheres?
No.
Perkins?
No.
Stewart?
Yes.
Steinmeier?
Yes.
Hobart?
No.
Mayor Rowland?
No.
Bill number 22-812, a resolution expressing opposition from the Independent City Council for the pending proposal before the Mid-Continent Public Library to lower the library levy by 2.28 cents.
Mr. Mayor,
Please proceed.
just briefly, this item is a statement of policy and principle. It's not an action item that can or will affect anything. The Mid-Continent Public Library is its own entity, and obviously they have the right to take any action they want independently of us. I don't believe that the public library should have any funding cut, and that's why I just propose this as a sentiment in support of not cutting funding.
Any further discussion?
Mr. Mayor,
Please proceed.
I'm not sure to ask the question to, but have they given a reason why they want to do this?
All I know, Councilmember Stewart, is that they feel that the public libraries have too much money. There's been a bit of a nationwide move on these types of things recently, and that's as much as I can tell you.
Thank you. I'm going to actually be voting no on this. It's just because I don't feel like we should be trying to control what another entity does. But that's all I got. Thank you.
Anybody else have further discussion? I think what I'm hearing you say, Councilmember, obviously this has no impact. It just sends our wishes but what I'm hearing you say in this resolution is basically we're supporting libraries and we'd like to have them funded, continue to be funded at the rate that they're funded rather than just go ahead and cut them, if I'm hearing you correctly.
Well, with
That's
the
correct.
Hold on.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That was Mr. Hobart. I'll come back to you. Sorry. Mr. Hobart?
Yes, that's true, Mr. Rowland, and Mr. Mayor, pardon me, excuse me. And I've heard that there's plans to add another library out east in Independence. So if funding is cut, that may affect directly a benefit that our residents see. So I'm a big fan. I use public libraries all the time. I use the app to read ebooks and audiobooks and all that. It's really great. I mean, it's a great service. So that's just my own personal thing. If other folks agree, then thank you.
And Councilmember Stewart, I didn't mean to cut you off, so please proceed.
It was my fault. I'm not saying, libraries are good. I mean, my daughter, her mom takes her and they get books there and stuff. I know that, I think they get their funding from property taxes. So, I mean, property taxes are increasing, so I think that would increase their funding. So maybe they're just trying to give the taxpayers a little break by decreasing it. I really don't know what the philosophy is. I've heard a few things, mainly online, but who knows what's true, who knows what's not true. But again, in my original statement, I think that their own entity, and we just need to let them do what they're going to do. So I'll be voting no.
Thank you, Councilmember. Any other comments? Hearing none. Madam City Clerk, please proceed.
Councilmember Spheres?
Yes.
Perkins?
Yes.
Stewart?
No.
Steinmeier?
No.
Hobart?
Yes.
Mayor Rowland?
Yes. And now we're on to ordinances, if I'm correct, Madam City Clerk. Please proceed.
Bill number 22-078, an ordinance levying a tax on all real property subject to taxation on January 1, 2022 within the corporate limits of the City of Independence, Missouri for general revenue and public health and recreation purposes and for the Independence Square Special Business Benefit District. Said levies and assessments being separate and distinct, all for the fiscal year commencing on the first day of July 2022 and ending on the 30th day of June 2023. Second and final reading.
Any discussion?
Mr. Mayor.
Please proceed.
Excuse me. Thank you. So at the public hearing, it was discussed, and one of the questions that was came about was why is the Independence Square having reduced tax levy? And for the record, they are not having a reduced tax levy. It's actually more than what is being required, that the voters in the taxing district has voted to self-impose that tax. So they are not getting any special favors or special treatment.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, the voters in this special district have actually voted for this levy. Okay. Thank you, Councilmember. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Spheres?
Yes.
Perkins?
Yes.
Stewart?
Yes.
Steinmeier?
Yes.
Hobart?
Yes.
Mayor Rowland?
Yes. Brings us to 22-079. Please proceed.
Bill number 22-079, an ordinance repealing Article 1 of Chapter 4, Property Maintenance Code, and adding a new Article 1 of Chapter 4, Property Maintenance Code of the City Code, and making other necessary revisions. Second and final reading.
Any discussion on this item? Mr. Deputy City Manager, if you could just kind of give us an update on this. There's a lot of citizens that wanted this or liked it or liked the provision. Help give me an update on it.
Yeah, I might just ask Community Development Director Tom Scannell to come up and provide a quick summary of these items, if you don't mind.
Yep.
Generally speaking, from a high level, this is really just modernizing, getting these into best practices and complying with state law.
Okay.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. Tom Scannell, I'm the Community Development Director. Yeah, as Deputy City Manager had mentioned, this is really updating our current property maintenance code. Our current property maintenance code was adopted in 1995, so that was some time ago, and so wanted to update that, also bring it into compliance with state statute. There's been a lot of changes at the state statute level. Wanted to get those corrected. The International Property Maintenance Code is part of the I-Series. Most cities in the U.S. use the International Building Code, Residential Code, and the International Property Maintenance Code plays well with that. It references the same thing, so everything is flowing through. Instead of having disjointed, we have a separate property maintenance code, but then we have the International Building Code, Fire Code, Gas Code, all of those things. So this really just updates it, modernizes it, and we can't wait to begin using that.
Will it give us more teeth when people have complaints about property maintenance and things like that?
Yes, and that is one of the things that we did include in this. So take, for example, many of you have received complaints about certain things that in the past we have not been able to address other than writing tickets. This will give us that ability to actually take the next step, write tickets, but also to address the issue so that the citizens feel assured that the violation is not going to remain there.
Okay. And could I give you a for instance, and then you could tell me yes or no, but for example, you've got a piece of property, they haven't mowed it, we go in and we mow it. It's a property there, we could actually put a lien on the property for the amount of money that we spent for it. Could we do something like that under this provision, or am I out of bounds?
No, we currently have that provision, and this will also continue this.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Norris. Any further questions, comments? Seeing none, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Spheres?
Yes.
Perkins? Yes. Stewart?
Yes.
Steinmeier?
Yes.
Hobart?
Yes.
Mayor Rowland?
Yes. This brings us to 22080.
Bill number 22-080, an ordinance amending section 12.09.008, abatement of the Independent City Code. Second and final reading.
Any discussion on this? Seeing none, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Spheres?
Yes.
Perkins? Stewart?
Yes.
Steinmeier?
Yes.
Hobart?
Yes.
Mayor Rowland?
Yes. Madam City Clerk, please proceed.
Bill number 22-081, an ordinance amending section 18.25.002, authority to impound abandoned property of the Independent City Code. Second and final reading.
Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Spheres?
Yes.
Perkins? Stewart?
Yes.
Steinmeier?
Yes.
Hobart?
Yes.
Mayor Rowland?
Yes. Madam City Clerk, please proceed.
Bill number 22-088, an ordinance vacating an existing water main easement of all the part of 505 North Dodging Avenue, lying in, on, and across Lot 7, except the south 9 feet of Hawkinsmith Land, a subdivision of Independence, Jackson County, Missouri. Second and final reading.
Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam City Clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Spheres?
Yes.
Perkins?
Yes.
Stewart?
Yes.
Steinmeier?
Yes.
Hobart?
Yes.
Mayor Rowland?
Yes. And this brings us to first reading, so Madam City Clerk.
Bill number 22-089, an ordinance authorizing the city manager to approve a cost share agreement with the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission for the 24 Highway Complete Streets Phase 3 project and increasing appropriations. Bill number 22-090, an ordinance approving the cooperative agreement among the City of Independence, Missouri, the Nolan South Shopping Center Community Improvement District, and the Nolan South Development Company, LLP. Bill number 22-091, an ordinance approving the intergovernmental cooperative agreement among the City of Independence, Missouri, and the Englewood Community Improvement District. Bill number 22-092, an ordinance amending ordinance number 19221 by updating the necessary easement types and descriptions for parcel 13 of the Raymond Harkless to Mills project, project number 131806, in order to coordinate with necessary design changes. Bill number 22-093, an ordinance repealing resolutions number 4530, 4822, 4889, 4691, 4739, 6343, and 4956, creating the Local Tax Oversight Committee.
Thank you. And this brings us to, if I'm correct, Madam City Clerk, to councilmember comments, and I'll start with you, Councilmember Stewart.
Thank you, Mayor. So bear with me for just a second.
Sure.
So the time is now 8:14, so we're 2 hours and 14 minutes into this meeting. So there's going to be a resolution on the next city council meeting, I believe the 1st of October, that's going to change the rules and the procedures of the city council meetings. And one of those is going to be to where we move the council, I'm sorry, the comments, the citizen request comments to. And so if that passes in 2 weeks, right before I started speaking, we would have had citizen comments. So we would make a speaker that just wanted to come in and speak maybe about crime in their neighborhood or potholes, maybe nothing related to the agenda, wait for 2 hours and 14 minutes while we conducted our business. I just wanted to bring that point up, that I don't think that would be right. And then the next thing I have, Mr. Assistant City Manager, I know we approved $100,000 for the police overtime investigation. Of that $100,000, how much did we actually spend on that?
The entire amount. Actually, the law firm wrote off quite a bit of their actual cost to keep it within the cost that the city council authorized.
That's what I was kind of getting at. I had heard to the grapevine that they had given us a discount. That is true?
Yeah, that's accurate.
Okay, that's what I was wanting to find out. That's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Perkins.
I agree with Councilman Stewart with some of those aspects of moving the discussion points for our citizens to speak at the first part of the council meeting as opposed to the end of the council meeting. You're right, they can get long for sure, but to have that ability to speak to us before any business gets down is one of the good thought.
Okay. Anything else? Very good. Councilmember Fears?
Yes, a couple things. So I'm in agreement as well on that. You know, it doesn't make sense to me that we put the citizen comments at the end when we may be voting on something that they are wanting to talk about. So, you know, I don't really understand that, but most of the other provisions there that we talked about, I'm in agreement with. Beyond that, I just want to, on my continuing effort to better understand how the city operates and do some due diligence on my part to kind of visit the departments and dig into operations and things. I rode along last Wednesday with Officer Thompson from the police department. Had spent all morning with him from about 6 a.m. to somewhere afternoon, and was a good experience. Really appreciated that effort and understanding, you know, just unless you actually have an opportunity to experience what the police really do in that type of a situation, in some of the situations that they face, it's really hard to envision that. And so appreciate what they do and appreciate the time spent with them. Look forward to continuing to learn more about some of the other departments and how things are done. Thank you.
Councilmember Hobart? You're on mute, sir.
Thank you very much. And I know my head's giant in there, so I apologize for that. I apologize for the T-shirt. First though, I wanted to give my thanks and recognition to you, Mr. Mayor, and to Councilmember Stewart. As soon as I saw the emails coming back and forth on those HR policies and which ones the council might be subject to, and I saw Bryce Stewart agree to it, I was happier than a clam. You know, small groups and professions in general don't always do a real good job of policing themselves. So I really hope the employees of this city and our council members realize that, and council employees realize that we do want to make this a better situation for everybody going forward. The second thing is, and I'm only saying this because Mayor Rowland suggested that I do it, but I'm not going to spoil the surprise. I'm in Washington, D.C. I am meeting with a few of our local federal representatives this week and am hopefully going to get some good news or upgrades or some help with our Frontier Trails Museum. So I'll just leave that at that. I will say, and this leads up to the third point, that this trip is wholly out of pocket my own pocket. And I really believe that for these extras that council people choose to do, that we should pay those expenses ourselves. I've always felt like that, and maybe we'll get something done on that too one of these days, Mr. Mayor. The final thing is, for those folks out there that got real interested in my social life last Thursday night, I just also wanted to let you know that I understand I need a chief shirt of some sort. I saw very much that I've got to lose some weight, and most importantly, I paid for my own ticket. Mr. Mayor, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Steinmeier?
Yes, I want to echo Councilmember Stewart's concern about putting the people who we work for last in these meetings. They should always have the opportunity to address their elected officials. They need to be able to come up and speak freely to us, and that should be the first order of business. You're the most important reason why we do what we do. Believe me, it's not glamorous, and it's very frustrating. I've had months of it. So I'll just say this. I don't know who came up with that, but they need to rethink it. And I hope that they reverse that course of action. I guess we could ask who came up with it. The decision to put the people last. I don't ever want you to think you're the last priority, because you're not. I've been talking for over 2 years about ethics and moral standards. Ethics are more than just words, they're deeds. It's about being above reproach. It's about doing the things that are right because they're the right reason to do them. And when we as a council lose faith and trust in each other, we got problems. And so I hope for all of us to work to rebuild trust and take that moral high ground again. You deserve that. So we need to work towards that. But there's going to have to be some work on our side to do it. I hope you all have a wonderful week this week. Thank you.
Thank you all for being here. Thank you for watching. It was one of those times where we had a spirit and a lively discussion, and I think spirited and lively discussions and democracy is a good thing. I don't think it's a bad thing. I think disagreements are a healthy thing, and we finally come to a better product when we do that. Councilmember Stewart reached out to me. We worked very, very hard on that issue and to make sure that we had a product that we could live with and that actually got to that conclusion. So, Councilmember Stewart, I appreciate your efforts on working on that. Again, we want to stay polite, professional, and productive. And I agree with Councilmember Steinmeier. We need to look at IPL and city processes, but we need to define those clearly. So let's make sure that we stay polite, professional, and productive. And again, we can't manage a secret. So with that being said, I just thought you had one more thing. So I didn't want to. So with that, we'll call the meeting adjourned. Thank you very much.